into the 40s by the time we get to the towards the end of the week, with hit and miss rain and snow. No real snow accumulations. Passes are going to get a little bit here and there, but even though it's going to be fairly active and unsettled, nothing really big happening as we wrap up 2023 and welcome 2024. That forecast is coming up, plus the news. A couple of weeks ago, it looked for all the world at the Seahawks with a 4-game losing streak. We're not going to make the playoffs. Well, by golly, that has changed, including another dramatic come-from-behind victory over the Titans over the weekend. We'll have highlights and analysis of that, plus Kraken hockey. And we want to replay the interview that Jefferson Robbins, our news director, did with Brad Hawkins, state senator from the 12th District, as they get ready to go back to work in Olympia on Monday, the 8th of January, for a short 60-day session. Brad Hawkins and his conversation with Jefferson Robbins. In the back half of the program, and at 2 minutes after the hour, we do our tour with our PTZ cameras, courtesy of Localtel's Sky-Fi division. And I think you can tell from behind me, that is the Cascadian, the roof of the Cascadian anyway. Have a couple of cameras up there. We have a couple of cameras to look at real quick like. There we go. Okay, it's the day after Christmas. You're going to have to cut this a little bit of slack. Very light traffic. Of course, there's no school. A lot of people are taking some time off. And even though it is a Tuesday, it's just not a lot of people out and about at this hour of the morning. We were at the Pybus Public Market on Saturday, and it was crazy busy on the 23rd at the Pybus. A lot of fun. Everybody was in the Christmas spirit. Let's see what else we have here. Camera 2. Well, let's back up to Lake Chelan we go. Look at that big cloud fog bank hanging right over the top of the lake from our Lower Butte camera, looking up towards Wapato Point, Holden Village, and the houses along the south shore of Lake Chelan. By the way, we have gained 1 minute of daylight since the winter solstice. In the last 5 days, we now have 8 hours and 28 minutes of daylight today. We like that. Sunrise is a little bit later, 7:47, but sunset is also a little bit later. So that's the trade-off there. Camera 3 is, I don't know, is that Cougar Ridge? What are we looking at there, Uriah? I'm not sure what we're looking at. We're looking at dark stuff. Okay, we're looking at something. Thank you for clearing that up, Uriah. And finally, camera number 4. Again, you're going to have to cut us some slack. Hey, there's Kashmir from the Apollones camera, high atop the Apollones Mall on that ridge up there above Kashmir. Again, pretty light traffic. Now, there's just one little concern out there if you're heading out and about, and that's heading into the mountain passes. And it's not really snow, although that is a concern, but it's more like freezing rain, especially in the passes. But everybody in our viewing area, you could see a pocket of freezing rain. We have this to show for you from the National Weather Service. It's a slide that looks something like this. There you go. Those little yellow splotches you see on the left-hand side of your screen, that's your freezing rain forecast. Again, hit and miss if we get any at all here in the Wenatchee Valley. But as you can see, especially on the summit of Snoqualmie and Stevens, that could get quite a bit of freezing rain. And that makes for some pretty slick roads in winter driving conditions. But some freezing rain possible out in the Columbia Basin and in the Moses Lake area as the system passes through. It's already beginning to pass through, as a matter of fact. There were winter weather advisories going through today. They have canceled all of those because the temperatures are going to be warmer than they anticipated as the series of weak systems begins to roll in. It's also ushering in some pretty mild air for late December from the National Weather Service. Lots of clouds today. Very little chance of rain. We'll top off at 35. Right at the freezing mark, 32 for the overnight low, but the snow level is going to be at 2,700 feet tonight. So we're not really expecting much of anything there. 32 for the overnight low. Snow level on Wednesday, 3,100 feet. So you see the 50% chance of precipitation, but the snow level is going to be way too high for us to get any kind of snow here. If anything, it'll be some afternoon rain on Wednesday. And mild, 37. Our normal high this time of the year is 32. In fact, we'll be above the 32-degree mark even for the overnight low Wednesday. Lots of clouds and just pretty quiet, benign weather on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Hit and miss rain here and there. A little bit of light snow in the upper elevations, as you can see. Lower 40s for the afternoon high as we head into the weekend and we welcome the new year with sunny and mild conditions. It has been a warmer than normal winter, even though winter itself is only 5 days old so far. Been pretty quiet. That is the weather. When we come back, the news. You're watching a Tuesday edition of Wake Up Wenatchee Valley, first day after Christmas on the NCW Life Channel.
Confluence Health, our mission is clear: to provide exceptional care for our community. We believe in healthcare that's personal and local because we're just like you, members of this great community.
We are Confluence.
Local care by and for our community.
Local care by and for our community.
Local care by and for our community.
We are Confluence.
Most of us are in touch with the internet in one way or another all day long. A fast, secure connection matters. It keeps us entertained, informed, and in touch. Local cares about your connection. We know strong, reliable internet with your choice of speed makes life better. If you need fast, reliable internet, or maybe an upgrade, or you just have questions, connect with us by visiting localtel.com or call 509-888-8888 today.
If you love good food and drink, you don't have to look all over for the food truck anymore. You can go directly to Mama Tina's new location at Riverside 9 Apartments. Top-rated pizza, sandwiches, and calzones, and a full bar make Mama Tina's your new destination restaurant.
The coldest part of the day, it is 30 degrees. Should be fairly dry. Again, some freezing rain in some upper elevations. And all in all, the weather is going to be very mild with some passing rain showers as we wrap up 2023. And at 7 minutes after the hour, 3 people were hospitalized following a Christmas Eve accident. This happened on Highway 17 a couple of miles south of Moses Lake. According to the Washington State Patrol, 56-year-old Juan C. Mora of Othello was driving a 2007 Kia Rondo southbound on the highway just before 7 p.m. on Christmas Eve when his car rear-ended a disabled 2015 Jeep Patriot that was parked on the shoulder. The Patriot then collided with a 2009 Toyota Avalon that had stopped to assist the Jeep. An occupant of the Toyota that was standing alongside the car, 59-year-old Janelle D. Deaver of Pasco, was struck. She and the driver of the Jeep, 33-year-old Walter Vialta Flores of Moses Lake, they were both taken to Sacred Heart Medical Center in Spokane with undisclosed injuries. Mora was transported to Samaritan Hospital in Moses Lake. He faces charges of vehicular assault. The Leavenworth Adventure Park wants to revise its operating permit with the city of Leavenworth. When it was built, the 10-acre park and the Alpine Coaster had to meet permit requirements, including limited hours, ticketed parking, and a study of noise created by the park. The park's owners recently filed an application to the city of Leavenworth to remove all those requirements, most of which were put into place to satisfy concerns from Leavenworth residents. The application also seeks to allow acoustic musical performances on the campus. The public can submit written comments about the proposal to Leavenworth City Hall until January 4th. Speaking of the city of Leavenworth, they put up $600,000 towards affordable housing in a town where housing is not particularly affordable. The City Council last week amended a grant to Upper Valley Mend, which will purchase 2 properties on Whitman and Joseph Streets. Rents on those properties will be affordable to those households earning the median income or below the median income. The median income, by the way, for the Leavenworth area is about $80,000 a year. But of course, housing costs are far beyond that. The purchase is part of a continuing plan by MEND to acquire a total of 31 affordable rental units in the city of Leavenworth at a cost of just over $5 million. And Brogan Potter, the Senior Director of Programs for the Wenatchee Valley YMCA, was selected out of 100 nominees for the YMCA of the USA Emerging Leaders 30 Under 30 Award. The award recognizes YMCA employees across the nation who have contributed greatly to both their facilities and community through their leadership skills. Well, we caught up with Brogan Potter to hear about her experience and getting the award.
I found out about the YUSA's 30 Under 30 program via email, actually. I got a what seemed like fishy email from somebody saying, you know, you've been nominated for this. Please fill out this, you know, questionable link with questions in it. And I actually forwarded it to our CEO, Dory, and said, does this look right? I mean, the email checks out. It's a ymca.net email, which is YUSA's email, but I don't know this person. It seems weird. I had no idea that I was even nominated. And we both did some digging and figured out that it does check out. So I filled out the questions. It was very easy, and I heard nothing after that, not a single thing. So I assumed I either didn't get it or they were waiting until the new year. I didn't really think much of it. And then my husband took me on a lunch date, which we do quite frequently, so it wasn't a big deal. And he told me that we had a meeting, which we're in the middle of, personal business stuff too. So I didn't, again, think anything of it. Took me down to Pybus and did this whole thing, played what he calls the dumb husband card, and I totally bought it, and then he drove me back up here, and I said, where are we going? Where are we going? And he walked me down into the teen center, and everybody was there, and they were like, congratulations. And I said, for what? I had no idea until Dory handed me the plaque that YUSA sent. I brought it home for our kids to look at because they were very, very interested in it. But it is a plaque that says, 30 under 30 YUSA, and a little script about serving our communities and why it's important for us to do the work that we do. I do now have an idea of who nominated me. I found out that it was one of our employees who has worked for us and for me for 5 years now. I hired her in September of 2018, and it was anonymous. They're not supposed to tell us who nominated us, but Dory did some digging and was able to find out who it was. So yeah, I was nominated by a current employee of ours. My thoughts and feelings going into this was just gratitude and, pride, of course, of our tiny little Y being able to be recognized on this level at some level. This is a nationwide award that goes out, and there are only obviously 30 honorees. It sounds like there were 100 nominations, so that was pretty cool. But I was just shocked, grateful. I genuinely love our Y. I love working for the Y. I love our mission. I truly have a passion for what we do. So I was honored to be able to receive something like this, honored that our entire team showed up for me that day on their lunch to celebrate this, and just really grateful for the opportunity to be able to serve our community.
And that's what's making headlines on this Tuesday. If you want to be informed, and you think you should be, about what's going on, you can watch the news with Grant in the anchor chair and Eric with sports tonight at 5, 6, and 10, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 10 o'clock on TV. You can watch it at right around 5 o'clock on our homepage, our YouTube page, our Facebook page, our app, whatever the case may be. And if there's something out there that you think is newsworthy, get a hold of us. Send us an email, news@ncwlife.com. Seahawks, who'd have thunk? Sports is next. You're watching Wake Up Wenatchee Valley on the NCW Life channel.
Are you hungry enough to eat the end out of a rhinoceros? I know how you feel. Come on out to Blueberry Hills. You'll have a great time. We've got excellent food, a feet on the furniture kind of experience, and we won't hustle you out of your table. If you want a real farm experience, make the trek to Manson to Blueberry Hills, where you sit, you pick, you eat, and you visit. So come on out and see what all the fuss is about. Blueberry Hills in Manson. It's where the world is coming to.
Sports, Seahawks are right in the hunt for the playoffs. Another come-from-behind victory over the holiday weekend. Seattle nipping Tennessee and Nashville Christmas Eve 20-17. Geno Smith engineering a 14-play, 75-yard touchdown drive, culminating in the game-winning 5-yard pass to Colby Parkinson.
I'm thinking, just like last week, I feel like Drew did a great job last week, and we had a chance to match it this week. And, as I'm going out there, I'm not thinking about anything else besides the situation. Knowing we got 4 downs, I think we had 2 or 3 timeouts left. So we had a bunch of time, about 3 minutes, thinking about the situation and how we can get in the end zone. I thought Shane did a great job. I thought protection held up great. Obviously, receivers did a great job of getting open, and then Kobe made a heck of a catch, to seal the deal right there.
Geno Smith said he was just trying to emulate what Drew Lock did against the Eagles on Monday Night Football.
Well, another dramatic finish for our guys, and sensational finish, really, to get that done under all of the circumstances, there's a lot of them, and Monday night coming off on the road, early game, all that kind of stuff that usually people talk about had nothing to do with it. And I love the way we finished this game, the way the focus of our guys throughout the 60 minutes was exactly as we needed. We went in at halftime and got serious about fixing things up, and we made the defense fix some stuff up. We obviously got better on offense at halftime, and then we came out and executed enough to get a win. These wins are so hard. They're so hard. And I thought a lot of guys did cool stuff and all, but look at Gino coming back and playing. Last week it was Drew taking us down the field. Today it was Gino taking us down the field. Has a lot to say with the system and the coaches and what they're getting done with these guys to communicate that well.
Good game for Bobby Wagner. Seahawks sacked Tennessee's quarterback 6 times. Bobby Wagner says it's all about resilience and believing in your teammates.
I think the connection of the guys, I think the belief of the guys that we have, the coaches that we have, I think that's what allowed us to keep our mind in it. We knew that we were going to have a tough stretch, but we control our own destiny, so we need to just take it one game at a time. I think the biggest thing, in my opinion, that we learned is when you play good teams like that, you can't shoot yourself in the foot. You can't have bad penalties, mistakes, things of that nature, because they will capitalize on that. And so hopefully we take that into the remainder of the season, onto God-willing playoffs.
Next up for the Seahawks, the Steelers in the final home game of the regular season at Lumen Field. That'll be Sunday at 1:05 on Fox. To the standings we go. The Rams knocked off New Orleans, so they remain ahead of Seattle in the NFC West and the wild card race. Arizona continues to be Arizona. They lost to Chicago 27-16. And San Francisco, as you probably saw last night, lost to Baltimore. Brock Purdy intercepted 4 times. If the season ended today, and by the way, it doesn't, Seattle would have the 7th seed in the NFC as a wild card team behind the Rams and Tampa Bay. Seattle Kraken earned an early Christmas present Saturday with a big victory over Anaheim. Seattle had been struggling in falling behind in games so far this season, but they struck first, and they beat the Mighty Ducks 3-2.
Smith with time over the middle. Smith and Jigba's got the first down. There's a flag down on the far side of the field. For the moment, it's an 18-yard gain and a Seattle first down. Smith, end zone.
Into the line, Dunn's pass off a skate. Pounced on by Leeson. Goes right up the gut. Short-handed break. DeCord with the stop. We remain scoreless, and the Kraken stay on the power play. Vince Dunn now handles, almost coughed it up, but it went right to McCann. Slides it over, and they score. Bjorkstrand makes it 1-0. Formerly of the Edmonton Oilers. And now Tatar finds Beniers. Oh, he makes the pass. Dunn with the finish. It's 2-0. Moves it into that bump position. Strome off the wing through traffic. Herrick had a hack at the rebound. Still digging for it, and DeCord has it. Oh, Henrique had a chance. On the draw to the right of the Seattle net, and it's in the feet of Henrique, and hammered home by Vetrano. Fowler throws it ahead. They catch the Kraken on a change. Here's McTavish. DeCord with a save. And now Seattle the other way. Dunn drops it off. Tatar cuts to the high slot. Goes backhand. Scores! So often the case. A near miss at one end. In the net at the other. 3-1 Seattle. Mintyukov brings it back in. Drops it off to Zegras. Trevor takes it in behind the net. He scores! A lacrosse goal! Exactly what Alan Lozoff asked for. Leeson trying to come through the neutral zone. Knocked off his stick. Trailing the play is Mintyukov. Pavel to the corner. In front. Leeson rolled by the glove hand of Joey DeCord.
What a stop. The Ducks had the momentum. Unfortunately, they couldn't get a third puck behind Joey DeCord.
And the Kraken are off until tomorrow. They'll be in Calgary to take on the Flames on Root Sports Northwest. Just a couple of women's college basketball games played over the holiday weekend. 20th ranked Gonzaga, the women, hosted New Mexico in Spokane and won 67-56. And Eastern Washington traveled to Wyoming. They won 62-43. Moses Lake's Jamie Laura led the Eastern ladies with 16 points. And to the Les Schwab Prep boys basketball scoreboard. On Friday, Meade beat Wenatchee. Monroe topped Eastmont. Tenasket over Colville in boys basketball. Okanagan edged Reardon. Napavine victorious over Brewster. The Bears turned around, by the way, to beat Rainier on Saturday, 66-57 girls score. Eastmont girls wrapped up a perfect week on Friday with a 60-42 win over Pasco. Walla Walla all over Wenatchee. Tenasca taking care of Colville. Okanagan girls edged Reardon. Napavine beat Brewster. And then the Brewster girls lost on Saturday at Rainier, 48-42. And those are just some of the games that people are playing. On this day after Christmas, it is Boxing Day in Great Britain. And a lot of the countries that used to fall under the domain of the British Crown. Happy Boxing Day. It is Day of Goodwill. It's National Candy Cane Day. It's National Winer's Day. That's for people who whine because they didn't get what they wanted for Christmas. Get over it. But today is the day to write your thank you notes the day after Christmas. Thank you notes are becoming a vanishing part of our culture, I guess is the best way to put it. I got a really nice thank you note the other day from the Kindness Counts folks. Remind you how cool thank you notes are. So this is the day you're kind of taking some time off from work or just taking it easy. Go to the local drugstore, buy some thank you notes, and write them out and send them off to all the people who got you the cool presents that you got over the holiday season. Not only is it the right thing to do, but kind of sets you apart. Everybody likes the thank you note, especially if you deserve it. What do you do if somebody gives you something you don't really like? Do you send them a note that says, what were you thinking? Anyway, write your thank you notes today. You'll be glad you did. We had to when we were kids. Had to write thank you notes to the grandparents for the presents. It's 22 minutes after the hour. Today in history. This is the actual agreement between Harry Frazee, the owner of the Boston Red Sox, and the New York Yankees. December 26th, 1919, 104 years ago today, the curse of the Bambino begins. George Herman Babe Ruth is sold outright to the New York Yankees for a whole bunch of money, plus the mortgage on Fenway Park. That's right. The Yankees own Fenway Park. It's still hard to believe. Of course, over the following 83 years, the Yankees would win 39 American League pennants and 26 World Championships. The Red Sox would win 4 pennants and no championships. The curse of the Bambino begins. The deal was cut on December 26, 1919. Wasn't announced until about a week later, much to the happiness of Yankee fans and to the chagrin of Red Sox fans everywhere. 60 years ago today, December 26, 1963, Capitol Records finally released a Beatles song in the United States. The parent company of Capitol Records, even though based in America, was EMI out of London. The Beatles' first couple of singles did pretty good in Great Britain, and then along came Please Please Me, and they shipped it over to the United States. Hey, here's this hot new English singing group from Liverpool. Check it out. You should release it. No, you say, you don't really know the American market. You're British. And then from me to you, here you go. What do you think? No, it's just not going to fly here. The American market's different. And then She Loves You. They shipped them a copy of She Loves You to Capitol Records in the United States. What do you think? You guys don't know what you're talking about, man. We know the American market. And then finally, DJs in the East Coast of the United States began to play imported copies of I Want to Hold Your Hand, and they just knew they couldn't resist anymore. And Capitol Records releases I Want to Hold Your Hand, which begins the Beatle phenomenon worldwide on this date 60 years ago today. And finally, this is the 32nd anniversary of the end of the Soviet Union. That was it. The Supreme Soviet, the Politburo, gets together and says, we're done. That's it. Gorbachev resigned. Boris Yeltsin got the keys to the nuclear codes. The Soviet Union is no more. And Russia, for the most part, takes its place. Happened on this date in 1991. That was a remarkable series of events. And birthdays. In a recent poll, 46% of all millennials have no idea who this guy is. He ran single-handedly, was the dictator of the country with the largest population of any country on the planet, and he was the dictator for 27 years. Mao Zedong, who ran China undisputedly from 1949 until he died in 1976. He was born in the state in 1893, Chairman Mao. And kids don't know who this guy is. Travel to China, you'll find out who this guy is. And 2 baseball Hall of Famers, 2 of the very best of their positions. The great Carlton Fisk is 76 years old. He's in the Baseball Hall of Fame on merit. He was inducted in the year 2000. A lot of people think this guy might be the best shortstop ever. Certainly one of the best defensive shortstops ever. The Wizard, Ozzie Smith, from the St. Louis Cardinals. Happy 69th to Ozzie. He's in the Baseball Hall of Fame, class of 2002. Mike Magnotti's got an opinion. That's coming your way. And Brad Hawkins and his legislative preview as they get ready to go back to work in a couple of weeks in Olympia for the short 60-day session. Jefferson Robbins had a conversation with Senator Hawkins. We'll have that up. And special thanks to our platinum sponsor here on the NCW Life channel. It's our friends at Alpine Air. For heat and air, call Alpine Air. You're watching a Boxing Day edition of Wake Up Wenatchee Valley on the NCW Life channel.
Stop by the Culinary Apple and elevate your cooking experience. With high-quality cookware, bakeware, and tools, you'll find just what you need. It's not too early to start thinking about the holidays. Pre-order your Apple gift packs and custom gift boxes now.
Located in the heart of downtown Chelan, Lake Chelan Sports is your best choice for outdoor apparel. Whether you're enjoying the lake or spending time with your family or simply relaxing, we have you covered. Welcome to Lake Chelan Sports.
Hey, this is Mike Mad Dog Magnotti, and everybody is entitled to my opinion. Now, some people like to point out things that they feel are indicators of our downfall as a society. Things like differing sexual identification and people with gender issues, lack of respect of authority, and the rise of substance abuse, to name a few. These are just some of the things that people think are indicators that our society is falling apart. Well, you know what I think is a real indicator of societal demise? Storage units. My gosh, what is wrong with us? Do we have to accumulate so much stuff in our lives that first we need to totally negate the purpose of a garage and then have to leave our cars parked outside, but then we actually have to rent a space that a third world family would consider large enough as a 2-bedroom home in order to store stuff we aren't even using anymore. Now look, eventually your stuff is probably going to be featured on Storage Unit Wars, where some hillbilly has paid $250 to claim the stuff you thought was priceless and had to be saved. And to pay a monthly fee to do it. Oh my gosh. All right, this is Mike Mad Dog Magnotti, and that's my opinion.
Hey, hon, would you run this around to the wash rack?
Oh, okay.
Hey, hon, what happened?
They shrunk the truck.
The all-new midsize Canyon is now available at Sangster Motors.
This is a short session. It's just 60 days constitutionally. So what's the focus of the legislators' activity?
Well, the main focus of the legislature for this session will be the state budgets. The state budgets on a 2-year cycle, and last legislative session we approved all 3 budgets for the 2-year period. So we approved the operating budget, the transportation budget, and the capital budget. And those budgets are good for the 2023 to 2025 biennium. But in the in-between years, we go back for 60 days, and the main purpose of the session is to make adjustments as needed to those budgets. But we also consider the bills that were introduced last session that did not pass. All of those bills are still technically alive for this upcoming session, and legislators are authorized to introduce new bills. But what I will share is that I believe last session almost 2,500 bills were introduced, yet only 400 were signed into law. So all 2,100 of those bills are still alive, but and with the new ones. But the long story short is most of the bills that get introduced don't make their way all the way to become law. And then, you know, with the budget adjustments that need to be made and some other issues that are on the table, there's a lot of work in 60 days.
Right. And that vast number of bills that you mentioned contributed a lot to the last session, being so busy, so packed, going late hours, starting early each morning. And we saw a lot of that playing out before the session.
Yeah, and this session will be no different. In fact, it'll be even more hectic because the way our Constitution is set up with these 105-day and 60-day sessions, yet the size and scope of the state government has grown, the budgets have grown, the complexities of all these issues still get sort of compressed into 60 days. And when you back out the weekends, even though we actually work the weekends, we're not taking votes and having committees usually on the weekends. So it ends up being 40 weekdays of legislative activity, and it's very intense, 14-hour days plus. But it'll be over before I know it, I'm sure.
Do you go in, Senator, with any particular objectives? Do you have goals you want to meet before 60 days are up?
Usually, although in the 60-day session I sort of moderate my expectations, because if there's anything even remotely controversial, it doesn't really have a good chance of passage. You know, if anything has a little hiccup or whatever, it can't make it, because the whole legislative session is predicated on certain cutoff days, and in the 60-day session, it seems like every week is another major cutoff and another, you know, brick is falling and bills are dying, and every week there's a big thing. So usually I have my listening tour in the fall, and that sort of kind of puts me in a good spot to go advocate for issues. And if any legislative ideas came out of that, then, you know, I could put forward those. But, you know, I know that the budgets will be a big issue this year, you know, making adjustments to those. But we also have some kind of bigger items in the mix. You know, we had this capital gains tax that was approved. There's a lot of excess revenue coming in with the capital gains tax, the Climate Commitment Act, cap and trade, carbon tax, however people want to refer to it. Those auction revenues are coming in much higher than anticipated. There's cost escalations in transportation projects all throughout the state, public works projects and other things outside of transportation that have had cost overruns. So there's a lot of things that legislators still want to see get across the finish line, but how we're going to be able to keep the budgets balanced and ensure that those projects get completed, that'll be a big part of the challenge over the 60 days.
What did you hear on your listening tour? I mean, what were people in the 12 telling you they want you to prioritize?
Well, a lot of what you might expect. I mean, a lot of people are really concerned about the increased gas prices. And to be fair, there's a lot of factors associated with what goes into gas prices, whether it's market demand, seasonal, you know, summer versus winter, international conflicts, gas taxes, but also regulatory actions, the Climate Commitment Act and some of the other issues at the time. You know, Governor Inslee, what he mentioned was, and some of the other legislators, is that these programs would only cost sort of pennies on the gallon, but a lot of economists had estimated at the time that was almost 50 cents a gallon extra it could cost, and that is what essentially I believe has played out. And the gas prices this summer are just crushing working families all across Washington state, and it's really not just what you pay at the pump to travel around, but when gas prices increase so drastically, people pay for it at the grocery store, people pay for it when they're getting supplies delivered to their home, home improvement projects, and restaurant bills. I mean, there's just a whole host of impacts associated with high gas prices as the gas prices ripple through the economy. So that's one of the things I heard, but we had good discussions about health care and wildfires and chiropractic care immigrant issues and all sorts of things. I actually split my listening tour. Half of it was in the Chelan-Douglas County area, and then half of it was in the Snohomish and King County areas of the district. That the 12th district, as you probably know and it's reported on, the boundaries have been adjusted quite a bit due to redistricting, and so to pick up population, the 12th district had to go all the way over the Cascade Mountains and into Monroe and part of Snohomish County and a little part of King in the rural areas. And so it's almost like I represent two different districts, though, with this huge Cascade Mountain range in between. And so I split the listening tour between the two. And some of the things I heard were similar and other things were unique to those areas.
How secure do you think is transportation funding for things like Confluence Parkway? You mentioned this is a session when budgets may be tinkered with, or there may be some adjustments or amendments made to dollar amounts that are already set aside. So when we talk about Confluence Parkway, it's a big subject of discussion here. How secure is state funding?
Yeah, I believe the current state funding is secure. But I don't want to speak for City of Wenatchee, but I know that they're likely anticipating some significant cost escalations with Confluence Parkway, which are not dissimilar to what the state of Washington for its projects or other communities are experiencing for their projects. And so one of the challenges with our transportation system is handling the cost escalations. But then we also have this extra Climate Commitment Act auction revenue, which may be able to be used to sort of moderate some of those cost escalations, although there's rules on those revenues that they have to be used for emission reduction purposes and things. But it is going to be a big topic of discussion. And what is interesting is in 2022, the state of Washington approved this Move Ahead Washington transportation package. And every 6 to 8 years, the state updates these transportation plans, and this particular one is a 16-year plan. So what I worked hard on with Mayor Kuntz and other advocates was securing the Confluence Parkway funding, but also in a schedule that was advantageous to the city of Wenatchee. So the last legislative session, we were successful in getting Confluence Parkway scheduled, and the money is actually, I think is $85 million, is scheduled to be appropriated over the next 6 years, over the next 3 transportation budget cycles. But if you have a project that's in year 10 to 16 of that Move Ahead Washington transportation plan, I'd be nervous. And so, but there is a real focus by the Transportation Committee to try to honor the commitments of a plan like that has been negotiated in good faith. And so we need to make sure all of those projects get across the finish line.
Moving into again, a budget review kind of period in this session, you've said you want more of the operating budget funding to be kept kind of in a reserve. The state has a budget stabilization fund, the rainy day fund. I think it ended 2022 with about $334 million still in pocket. You'd like to see that enhanced, I guess.
Absolutely. And when you consider a nearly $70 billion 2-year budget, the reserves that the state of Washington holds is not as strong of a cash position as what I would like.
It's a smaller percentage of the whole.
Yes, and then there's been other programs and other reserve accounts that have essentially been raided in the past by budget writers too. And it's a big debate, and again, to try to be fair, you know, because I have really good friends who are Democrats that want to do what's best for the state of Washington but have a different opinion. They might say, well, Brad, we can't hold back too much because then we have dollars that we could invest in kids and education, these other things that we're just kind of holding in reserves, and we need to get those dollars to work for the people of the state of Washington. So I guess what I'm saying is good people can disagree on this, but I would much rather prefer that the state of Washington have a much healthier reserve account. And last legislative session, there's 3 state budgets. So last legislative session, I voted for the capital budget and the transportation budget, but I voted against the operating budget. And one of the reasons was that I feel like we're sort of spending to the edge. And our revenues for our operating budget are mostly business taxes and sales taxes. Now there's real estate taxes, we get this new capital gains tax and there's other fees and things that flow into the operating budget, a small portion of the state property tax, for example. But most of our $70 billion operating budget is predicated on the success of businesses and people's spending. And if those revenues dip and we've spent to the edge, then I think we're in real trouble. And the state revenue is projected to be slightly up over what was projected, about $200 million to the positive. Now again, it's a $70 billion budget, so $200 million in the positive is a good thing, at least it's not in the negative. But the revenue forecast shows a significant decrease in the rate of growth of our economy. And if the national economic impacts are such over the next 2 or 4 years, if state revenue flattens or decreases and we don't have enough in reserves, then we're looking at some major cutbacks.
You want to guard against that hazard?
I want to guard against that but it's interesting because a lot of the programs like the capital gains tax, it was actually set up to fund expanded child care. And so I think strategically some of the advocates for the capital gains tax knew that if the state Supreme Court strikes this down or if voters revolt against it or whatever, then it's still going to be difficult to reduce those programs that are built into the budget. Same with the Climate Commitment Act, the cap and trade revenues. A lot of those now are going to be built into the budgets and the spending. So if something like that were to eventually go away, well, so does the revenue, and you need to make those hard decisions. So long story short, yes, I'd rather save more and kind of weather the ups and downs. You know, our state economy, largely because it's a sales tax dependent economy, you know, has ups and downs. And if you have more in a cash reserves, then you're able to sort of smooth out those peaks and those valleys of the revenue.
Well, Brad, you've been very closely watching education most of your career. You're a former Eastmont School Board member. You're currently on higher ed and the early learning and K through 12 committees. You're the ranking member of the early learning committee. And last year we saw Eastmont School District try to pass about a $185 million bond measure. It got a majority, 51 or so percent. Did not get the supermajority that it needed, 60% to pass a new bond. The district has said they'll try to come back with a modified proposal for the voters this year. Wenatchee School District is likely to do something similar. You've also said you wouldn't support a simple majority for bond approval. Wouldn't support changing the law to allow that. Why is that?
Well, it's a good question, and we did have a state Supreme Court case related to school construction where the state Supreme Court basically upheld that school facilities are a shared responsibility between the state and school districts.
And to be clear, when we vote for bonds, we're voting for the construction generally of school facilities, and when we vote for levies, we're voting for operations.
Yeah, one way I like to say it is levies are for learning and bonds are for buildings. And it's confusing to voters because they both are ballot measures and they both involve people's property taxes, but they have different thresholds, and I think for good reason. So I do support a simple majority for school levies. Those are for supplementing school operating costs. They're short-term tax authorizations, and they're subject to being reauthorized, whereas the bonds are long-term tax commitments by communities that encumber those residents and future residents of those communities over several years, sometimes multiple decades or maybe 25 years. So I think it warrants a higher threshold for approval. And I know that sometimes school districts will argue that the reason their school bond proposals aren't being approved is simply because of this higher threshold. But I would argue that that's likely not the case. Sometimes the school districts ask for too much. Sometimes their communications aren't effective. Sometimes there's turmoil in their districts unrelated to their bond facility proposals that sort of compromise the efforts in the community to get things passed. So there are different reasons. And for example, with Eastmont, I don't necessarily want to speak to every instance, but I know they asked for a lot, and I know they did that pretty quickly, and it was a lot of information pretty soon. And now they're coming back saying, well, we heard your message, and now we've refined our proposal, and here's what it is. And sometimes school districts need to go through that process a couple times, but I will tell you, it's not impossible to pass a school bond at 60%. And the reason I know is because when I was the school board president at Eastmont, I believe it was 2010, we did successfully pass a school bond at 60% on a general election ballot in November and during a recession. So if you have the right communications and the board is unified and the community is behind you, and you put in the work and you make the case, then yes, you can get those approved. You don't have to try 4 or 5 times. You can do it on the first time. Now, I know that Cascade School District in Leavenworth also got a school bond approved. They were Eastmont and Cascade were probably the 2 most recent school districts in our area. But yes, some school districts have struggled. But the state does have grant programs in place to assist school districts with their facilities, even the school districts that don't get their bonds approved. And maybe those can be beefed up a little bit, okay? But some of the school districts that do have their communities approve their bonds, they are eligible to receive matching funds from the state school construction assistance program. So we do a lot to assist school districts, both on the operation side and on the capital side. And I anticipate, that'll all be on the table again this session. On the operation side, I will tell you the funding for school districts has significantly increased. 10 years ago, it was about $8,700 per student per year. Now, with local funding and federal funding and state funding, it's approximately $17,200 per student per year. Yet the performance of the school districts are struggling too. I think just over 50% of students are achieving English language arts standards across grade levels. And I think for math, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 39% for math. So we are funding school districts significantly more. School districts are greatly expanding their scope of services that they're providing. And I would argue actually that academics is becoming less of a priority for our school system because our schools are trying to be the deliverer of all services to kids. And I know it's a tough discussion. We probably don't have time to get into all that today, but just because you have children in your school system that have certain needs, that doesn't mean that the school district needs to be the service provider to meet all those needs. Because if that's the case, we'll never have enough money to fully fund education. We can take the entire $70 billion operating budget and dump it completely on this table out to just fund education, and it wouldn't be enough if the scope of services for our school districts continues to expand. Back in 2015, I think the state Supreme Court said we were fully funding education with the McClear decision, yet school districts have asked for more in voter-approved levies. They've asked for more in state funds. They've received it. Yet they still argue it's not enough, and part of it is because of society's expectations that we're putting on the school system to do so much more than beyond their fundamental responsibility as academic institutions.
Let me ask you one more question. Brad, you have often been proud that the 12th district was the largest geographic district. That has since changed a little bit. The 7th district right next door to us is vast, covers a large territory. And your district, again, as you said, has been sort of pushed into a new shape where you're representing more of Snohomish and King counties, which you didn't previously represent. And your district just barely includes your neighborhood where you live. I have to point this out. So, and the whole process was a little bit fraught, and it's under some litigation in some areas. What are your thoughts on how that process was carried out?
I think it went terribly bad. I don't think there was a lot of transparency. The bipartisan redistricting commission had laid out like certain draft maps and proposals, and I looked at all of those, and a lot of the communities in Chelan and Douglas counties, a lot of the entities provided comments and kind of did everything that the redistricting commission asked for, and then they ended up in the final hour, literally, coming up with something completely different. And it really, the most disappointing part of the statewide redistricting to me was how it split up what I would consider communities of interest, Chelan and Douglas counties, and in particular how it kind of carved into the Wenatchee Valley area, where the city of East Wenatchee and Chelan County are in the 12th, but the rest of East Wenatchee sort of in the county, but with an East Wenatchee address, and beyond in Douglas County are
most of Douglas is
the
now in the 7th
yeah.
district. Yeah.
And when you think about it, we have the Chelan-Douglas Land Trust, the Chelan-Douglas Health District, the Chelan-Douglas Regional Port Authority, and the Wenatchee Valley Chamber of Commerce, and all of these entities that have sort of designed themselves around the Wenatchee Valley as one community. And so that really disappointed me. But I kind of knew that the 12th district was likely going to change. I didn't anticipate it to be that drastic, but what had happened in the redistricting is every 10 years, the state goes through this process of collecting the census data and rebalancing the legislative districts. And if we were to spread out the map of Washington state on this table, there's actually 49 different legislative districts, but they're all different shapes and sizes geographically, like puzzle pieces, but they're supposed to balance population, so that when I take a vote representing the people of the 12th, or Senator Short takes a vote representing the people of the 7th, we're all representing the same number of constituents. That's the idea. And the population reports were increasing greatly in the western Washington side of the state. But the central and eastern Washington portion of the state was sort of underpopulated. And so I knew that the eastern and central Washington legislative districts needed to expand geographically to pick up population. And the western Washington legislative districts would sort of condense a little bit. And when you look at the 12th district and maybe the 13th, there's only a couple legislative districts that sort of border the Cascades. We consider ourselves central Washington, but we're basically right up against the Cascades, you know, and so then we got nudged over as a 12. But you have to get nudged way over to pick up population, because as you go along Highway 2, you know, you picked up Gold Bar and Sultan, but you have to almost get to Monroe to really pick up a lot of population. But I've been working really closely the last couple of years with the Highway 2 communities and trips to Monroe, and then also a small portion of rural King County, meeting with those folks too.
Do you find that the western citizenry areas, the population areas that you represent over there, are their interests distinctly different from those of Wenatchee, East Wenatchee, Chelan?
Not necessarily. I mean, obviously there's less agriculture and maybe less wildfire concerns and things like that, but a lot of the issues really, when you think about, for example, agriculture and wildfire, those are issues of statewide importance too. One of the major challenges we have with the newly configured 12th district is the vast scope of the transportation needs in the area. And frankly, I knew that once we got redistricted, and based on my initial research with those communities. And that's one of the reasons I went so all in on Confluence Parkway and trying to secure that funding in 2022, because once we get into the newly configured district, sort of the Wenatchee Valley is no longer the epicenter of the district. You have to kind of do your best to represent everybody, which we've always tried to do, but that also means when it comes, for example, to transportation, that there's some major projects that need to get funded over there. So the people of Monroe talked to me about finishing the State Route 522 project, which is estimated to cost now $260 million. I worked with the community of North Bend to get an interchange supported near I-90 and Highway 18, if you've driven out that way. And we're also working to expand and widen Highway 18, which is, for those of folks who travel to Tacoma, they will see all the trees being taken down. The highway's going to be widened. That's almost a $500 million project. And then Highway 2. What's been interesting about Highway 2 between, say, Leavenworth and Monroe is over time the state population, over several decades, has grown considerably, yet there have been little to no capacity improvements or safety improvements made to Highway 2. Now, there are some geographical constraints on that Stevens Pass Highway 2, but there is a lot of work that needs to be done. When I-90 Snoqualmie Pass closes down, there are miles and miles of backups on Highway 2 on holidays or weekends or even snowing and snow skiing and snowboarding days. It backs up for miles and miles, and that's actually my community right now, so my district. So a lot of the people from Sultan are coming to me asking for Highway 2 improvements, and the city of Sultan, I've worked closely with them. They've identified a whole series of roundabouts and widening and replacing bridges, but that's going to be hundreds of millions of dollars too. And Highway 2 has sort of been neglected for several decades, and now, you know, it's my district, so I'm going to do my best, but I feel like we have lots and lots of work to do, and frankly, probably $1 billion worth of transportation improvements over the next couple decades that need to be made. So it's a big deal. So when you think about it, the districts in some ways are similar, in other ways they're very different. And I'm really thankful to get this secured for Confluence Parkway, because future transportation funding may need to be directed to other areas of the district.
Well, again, we know you won't be able to solve all these things in 60 days, but we'll be watching and wishing you luck. So.
Oh, thank you, Jefferson.
Senator Brad Hawkins with the 12th District, thanks a lot for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
You're watching the NCW Live channel.
Snow piles up quickly. Remove it just as quickly with Kubota compact and utility tractors. Rated #1 in durability and owner experience, they're built to take on winter with front and rear mount snow blowers, blades, and rotary sweepers. Get select Kubota tractors for 0 down, 2.99% APR for up to 84 months, plus save up to $800 on qualifying snow attachments. See your local Kubota dealer today.
Getting ready to wrap up this Boxing Day edition of Wake Up Wenatchee Valley. Had a chance to step outside our studios here in downtown Wenatchee during the Brad Hawkins interview just to check things out traffic-wise. And I know it is the day after Christmas, and a lot of people are taking some time off from work, and there's no school, you know, for all the schools at Wenatchee Valley College. But I was amazed about how really light the traffic is here in and around the downtown Wenatchee area. It is very light indeed, so you're going to have no problem getting from point A to point B, with the exception of maybe the mountain passes. They are still going to be dealing with some pockets of freezing rain later on today. But basically the weather for the rest of this week is going to be very mild, and we're going to be dealing more with a rain issue than snow. From the National Weather Service, one more look at your forecast. Clouds all day today. Will top off at 35, and that is the coldest afternoon high we have in the forecast. As you can see, about 32 for the overnight low tonight. Snow level today is going to be about 2,700 feet. It'll be at 3,100 feet on Wednesday, and well above the valley floor for the rest of the week. So just mild, very mild. And we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
From a lighted tree to a giving tree.
To the music of the soul.
You're the heart and soul of Christmas.
Then, zoos have a hard time keeping presents under wraps.
Welcome to Small Town Big Deal. I'm Rodney Miller.
And I'm